Welcome. I call this second meeting of the Interim Joint Budget Review Subcommittee on Education to order. At this time, we'll have Amy call the roll.
Representative Baker. Here. Representative Bojanowski.
Here.
Representative Bowling. Representative Brown. Representative Kleins.
Here.
Representative Truitt.
Here.
Senator Neal.
Present.
Senator West. Senator Mays Bledsoe. Senator McDaniel. Representative Bray. Representative Petrie. Representative Lewis.
Here.
Representative McCool. Representative Tipton. Representative Rawlings.
Present.
Representative Banta.
Present.
Chair Riley.
Present. Members have been given time to review meeting minutes prior to the meeting. I will now hear a motion to approve the meeting minutes from July 15, 2025. We have a motion? Second. Got a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, thank you. Now we will go ahead with the meeting. First of all, we're going to flip the order just a little bit. If Kia will make their way to the table. And if you could, introduce yourself for the record.
Good morning, Joe Carroll Ellis, Executive Director of the Kentucky Higher Education Assistance Authority.
And I'm Becky Gilpatrick, Director of Student Aid for Kia.
Go ahead and proceed.
Well, good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to provide information on student financial aid today with an eye toward the upcoming biennial budget session in January. I first wanted to give you a quick reminder of KIA's role and purpose. Our agency, statutorily created in 1966, we administer 17 state-funded grant and scholarship programs. We provide comprehensive statewide outreach programs. We are the U.S. Department of Ed Federal Guarantee Agency for the Federal Family Education Loan Program. We are a service provider to the higher education institutions in the state, and we also administer the state's two 529 college savings programs. But the main reason we're here today is to provide information on student aid expenditures for the current biennium to give you an idea of what we'll be requesting in the next budget cycle. Becky will be getting into the specifics, but I'd like to quickly set the table with some overarching points. As a reminder, 100% of net lottery proceeds after a $3 million appropriation for literacy initiatives are statutorily dedicated to the student financial aid programs. In particular, the big three. The College Access Program grant, the Kentucky Tuition Grant, and KEYS. But the lottery currently funds additional programs, including Dual Credit Scholarship, Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship, Teacher Scholarship, and the Kentucky National Guard Tuition Award Program. When KIA prepares its biennial budget request, we include what we project needed amounts are to fully fund the programs, so legislators have a complete picture to assist in making appropriation decisions. We entered a new era of student aid eligibility in fiscal year 25 with changes made to the federal methodology for determining financial need, resulting in a major increase in eligible students for Pell Grants and, as a result, our CAP program. I'd like to personally and publicly thank the General Assembly for choosing to appropriate substantial additional dollars this biennium to fund the projected increase in CAP grant eligible students, and to tell you that our projections were very close to actual disbursements in FY25. So with that teaser, I'll turn it over to Becky to get into specifics on the programs and their numbers.
All right, thank you, Joe Carroll. All right, we'll start off with the state grants, as I believe that's probably going to be the area of most interest for this upcoming budget cycle. We have two different state grant programs. The College Access Program is for our lowest income students. And essentially, if you're eligible for a federal Pell Grant, you're going to be eligible for a state CAP grant. And we have, enrollment requirements, at least half-time enrollment. And the maximum awards on those are currently $2,500 at a KCTCS or two-year institution and $5,300 at the 4 years. The Kentucky Tuition Grant is a tuition equalization for students at the private colleges in Kentucky, and that award is $3,500 for this year. The KTG award maximum is a statutory calculation, and it's tied to the full-time equivalent rates for the students at the public universities. And so we kind of are within certain limits on KTG. With CAP, we have a little more flexibility. However, all of these students have to file a FAFSA as their application. And we award all of the funds first come, first serve by the date that they complete that initial FAFSA application. I have this up here just to let you know kind of where our grants work with the Pell Grant program to cover tuition and fees. Now, certainly the grant monies can be applied to any item in the cost of attendance for a student, so it could include the room and board charges, books, materials, whatever the institution's budgeting for aid. It's not just a tuition-specific type of aid. But what we have here is just what the averages are for tuition and fees at the three different levels of post-secondary institutions we have here in Kentucky. This is this year's numbers. So as you can see with the research at the top, that's UK and U of L. Their average tuition is coming to $13,600 and change. And then what we have in the yellow is what the maximum Pell Grant is set for this academic year. And then in the green, we have what the maximum CAP grant would be for this academic year. And then the difference between those, Pell plus CAP covers all but about $954 on the average at those research universities. For the regional comprehensive universities, we are actually a little bit ahead, so we're fully covering all of that. However, Western Kentucky University's tuition is starting to creep up to where it's averaging that, so we're kind of starting to lose ground on the comprehensives. And of course, KCTCS, we exceed the tuition and fees amount, but keep in mind they have those other expenses that go into their cost of attendance, so it's helping to meet those needs as well. KIA increased the CAP grant maximum to $5,300 in 2022, and at that time we were able to keep pace with all the public universities with the Pell plus CAP figure. However, we've kept it at $5,300 over the last few years, knowing that this change in the FAFSA application was coming in the new methodology. We wanted to kind of ride the wave on that. But we certainly wanted to make you aware of how we look at that for setting that award maximum, because figuring the maximum is always a balance. With how much money we have, it's always subject to available funds. But beyond that, if we set it at a lower amount, we fund students for longer into the application cycle. If we increase the award amount, then we run the risk of not being able to award as far into the application cycle and having people who are denied aid. Several years ago, we got, and when I say several, I'm talking like 2013, 2014, a decade ago, we were in a situation where we weren't making it past 2 months in the application cycle. I'm very happy to say that this past academic year for 24-25, we made it the full 21 months that the application was open. So thank you for that, giving us that funding to work with, because it really did allow us to run the full cycle and see exactly how far it would go. So the FAFSA Simplification Act of 2021 is when it was passed. However, this past school year, 24-25, was the first time we actually had it implemented, and we're paying students under the new methodologies for the Pell Grant. We were expecting a significant increase of 29%, and that's how we came up with our budget figures this last time. And as we mentioned, you all were very generous with appropriating additional monies to us, $214 million above that baseline over the current biennium. As it was enough to fully fund us last year, we're keeping very close watch on the numbers this year, being the second year into that implementation. So I make no promises right now about getting to month 21. We are still awarding, though, right now, and school is already starting. So we have made it far enough for the school year to begin and for students who are filing late to still be considered for eligibility. So we're in good shape that way. Of that $214 million, there is $148.9 million of it that was restricted fund that was pulling from the excess lottery. And we do understand that those excess lottery revenues are being drained. And so this is why we're putting this information forward, because we realize you have a very tough decision to make this upcoming session about just how much money we can have back for these need-based programs. So the rest of this numbers on here, what we awarded, I told you everybody, and that ended up being $232 million is what we spent this past year for 72,000 students. This year, as I mentioned, we are seeing it rise in applications, so currently we're 10% above where we were this time last year. However, we still have money, and we're still running with it, and I'm hoping we get really far. This is just an overview of what the disbursement activity has looked like for the past 5 fiscal years for the CAP grant program. And you'll see that red line there is where that new federal methodology started, so it gives you a before and after picture of the increase in students. Specifically, if you look at 24, there were 55,000 recipients, and that was jumped up to 72,000 with letting everybody into the stream. Now, I will say for the 24 year, we did not have enough funding to fully fund the full 21 months, so it's hard to say what that would have looked like if we'd had the extra funding the year before that, but we've set at 72,000 this last year. On the Kentucky tuition grant, we also had an increase in expenditures, roughly 2,300 recipients that actually came up on that. The application counts might be a little deceiving right there, but I just think that's part of the way the data flowed into it. You had to keep in mind that this federal methodology expands eligibility. So families who would not have been eligible under the old system are now eligible under the new system, and that helps push the recipient counts up. This is a look at what our FAFSA data is currently showing. This slide has the first-time filers who are undergraduate residents. And what's interesting about this slide is that blue line is where we were last year. The red line that is surpassing everything is where our filers are for the current year. And this is just the first-time applicants for the FAFSA. They do make up about 25% of the total population when we look at it as a whole. But that red line, it's actually, this was at the 1st of August, and this is where we were on the data. That line has really jumped up even that much more over the last few weeks in August as school starts. So as I said, we're keeping very close eye on all of this to see exactly how far we can get with the money for this upcoming year. It looks similar, but this is cumulative for all the FAFSA applicants across all the years. And this is those who are Pell eligible. And as you can see, the Pell eligibles are outpacing where we were this time last year as well on all of that. So we are expecting higher numbers of eligible students, higher recipient counts all the way around. Of course, school just started this past week for many of them, so we haven't started to send money out the door yet. There's still a lot of ifs that are going into all of this, this guesswork, educated guesswork, to see how far we'll actually end up on this. So can I stop there to see if we have any CAP grant questions?
Representative Bojanowski.
Okay, so I was a little bit confused on something. Can you go back to the slide, the impact of the FAFSA Simplification Act?
That one?
Yes, so on that slide, it says you awarded CAP grants to all fiscal year 25 eligible students. But then on the next slide, there's a difference between applicants and recipients. Can you explain? I mean, were those students who applied but didn't receive it not eligible, or I just wasn't understanding?
So KIA determines initial eligibility based on application data. And then the schools actually determine final eligibility for the programs. So yes, there were people who applied, could be potentially eligible, and then for one reason or the other, they were not eligible once the school verified them.
Representative McCool?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. So the CAP, to be eligible for CAP, you have to be eligible for Pell Grant. Is that the same thing holds true for the KTG?
Not necessarily. The KTG works off of a different need formula, so it's not pure Pell eligible there.
Okay, so I guess, Mr. Chair, if I could ask one more
Yes, sir.
question. So that may help with those who are working class?
Yes, more middle-income families would qualify for KTG just because their tuition rates at those private institutions are so much higher. It sets their bar higher for their need calculation.
So it's not just for private institutions, though, is it?
Well, KTG is just for private institutions.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Neal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You probably said this, but I want to get it clear in my mind. I'm looking at that chart where I think they're the first time applicants for 2025, 2026.
Sorry, I went the wrong way. No, I didn't. Yep, there.
Right.
Sorry.
So does that suggest, if you project that out, does that suggest to you, or have you all made any projections about where we might end up, where we might fall off the cliff, or whether we can make the whole run there or what?
I play in that marker patch frequently. So, no, it's really hard to tell exactly where it's going to end up. Right now, I mean, I cut this off at the 21-22 year, but right now it's pacing up above where we were for 2017, 2018. So in the end, on the cumulatives, we expect that to be at least 200,000 applicants, maybe a little bit more by year end. Let me put the cumulative up. That's that slide. So it will be a whole nother bar because it's 150 is where it's cutting off at the end on all of those. So we expect it to go on up toward 200,000, but I'm not sure how far it will get close to that. What we can see, and if you look at the way the line trends, there it starts to slow down, at a certain point. So we are waiting for that slowdown to start, and we're expecting that to happen in September, October, if everything continues the way it has in the past.
May I?
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
So that last statement, would that suggest then at that time you can get a clearer picture of projecting whether we're going to fall short or whether we're going to cover it?
We'll start to have a clearer picture once money starts to go out the door, and we can actually see how enrollment at the institutions is impacting this. Because right now, these are just award offers that we're putting out there based on historical utilizations
Right.
and some educated guesswork.
So some might not be completed. Some people may not
Right.
follow through us.
Usually by the end of November, December, we're starting to get a much clearer picture of where we may land with the year.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Neal. Representative Tipton?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a couple questions, please.
Yes, sir.
As it relates to all the scholarships and grants, recently got a year-end report from the lottery on the revenues projected to go to the estate, and I believe they're down. Is it around 10 million less than last year? So we've got a few less dollars coming in. Is that correct?
I do not know the lottery numbers.
I
at
believe
this point in
last year it
time.
was 404, and I believe it's like 390, low 390s this year. So we're going to have about $10 million less of revenue, but still good, healthy numbers. My second question, there's a lot been going on in Washington, D.C. this year. Recently passed House Resolution 1. Have you all been able to evaluate higher ed changes in that legislation and project what the future impact's going to be on our scholarship and grant programs?
Thank you. It's a good question, Representative Tipton. We have been closely following the changes at the federal level. As of now, we don't anticipate impacts on the grant and scholarship programs. The impacts are going to be on the student loan side, and changes made to the federal program, and not as much availability in the federal program, and what that may mean for students, especially at the graduate level.
Thank you. Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll pick back up with the Keys Scholarship, which is the third of the big three, and I didn't want to spend very long on this. Keys is very well known. It's been fully funded since the program was created and back in the late 1990s. But what I've given you here is just where we were with expenditures this past 5 years. There is a Keys consensus forecast that takes place, and it is a very good forecast. I'm very happy to say that last year we were within $76,000 of being right on the nose with the forecast amount, which equals the appropriation amount and the amount we actually needed. So if you consider a $114.5 million program and we hit it within $76,000, that's some really good modeling that's going on. So we will have that forecast number for you and include it in our budget request when that rolls forward. Another program I wanted to really bring attention to is the dual credit scholarship. KIA will be asking for growth funding on this, and I'm going to explain why. But first, just to remind you that this past legislative session, there actually was a bill that was passed and was able to give us some administrative efficiencies for the programs. And it essentially took the Work Ready portion for high school students. It was our Work Ready dual credit and our career and technical education, and moved that over into the dual credit scholarship program. So everything with dual credit is now housed under one scholarship program. Although we had been paying, per budget instructions, we'd been paying all the dual credit from the same fund over the last several years regardless, but now we all have it in the same statute. So that will help us statewide as we implement changes to the program to make it work better for everybody, the high schools, the parents, the students, the colleges. The biennial budget language, there is some pieces of it that are still sitting in the budget language. For instance, there's a rate increase for the dual credit rate, and it's set at 50% of the KCTCS in-state per credit hour rate, which is $97. The scholarship statute has that rate set at 1/3 of that KCTCS rate. And there's an expansion of scholarship eligibility that is sitting in the budget language that essentially allows 2 additional gen ed courses for each student over their junior and senior year, which gives a total of 4 free general education courses. And then on the CTE side, the students can have 2 per year in grades 9 through 12. And so that's how we get to a maximum of 12 classes for dual credit that are paid for through the scholarship program. This is what it ends up looking like on the disbursement activity for dual credit. You can see the base appropriations have been less than we've actually needed for the total. And if you combine the totals across the 2 programs, that's where you really get the accurate picture. So for this last fiscal year, FY25, that $14.5 million for the dual credit scholarship plus that $11.9 at Work Ready, we ended up spending $26.4 million with the program, although $13.1 was appropriated. And what we did was we transferred money over from the Work Ready Kentucky scholarship to keep dual credit fully funded. And we had enough money for both of those programs, so we didn't short Work Ready. But we needed to cover dual credit because it becomes incredibly hard for us to do a first-come, first-served type of awarding for dual credit when we have high school students coming in at different times of the year and sending in their information, their application data to KIA. And of course, that also, you have schools that start out in the public schools different times of the year. So it'd be very hard for us to make award offers to students through all grade levels and then have somebody come in late and say, no, now we have to take your award away because we have this new crop of juniors and seniors that need the money worse. So we have been fortunate to be able to fully fund the dual credit program since it began, But I wanted to bring this to your attention because we are going to ask for that growth request now that we have everything, the work-ready aspect in with the regular dual credit, because it is increasing. I'll just give you the totals. For 24, it was 23.6. I mentioned 25 was 26.4, so that was a $3 million increase just from that 1 year to the next. And dual credit participation is still growing by leaps and bounds in the high schools. It's talked about a lot. It's encouraged a lot, especially on the career and technical education side. We're seeing a lot of growth there. In 23, that total was 20.5 million, so it's been a $3 million increase over the last several years, and we're actually expecting it to increase again for this year. And even though we are still where we are with the 13.1 appropriation, we know right now we're going to need to transfer funds from probably the Work Ready program again, just to make dual credit whole for this year.
While we're on dual credit, Work Ready, we got a couple of questions. Senator
Okay.
McDaniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So dual credit obviously kind of has a dual purpose as well, right? I mean, there's obviously the trying to get that child into a little bit more of an academically accelerated program, but at the same time, get some college credits knocked out for them. On the getting college credits knocked out side, do we have any kind of tracking whatsoever where when a young person is taking a dual credit class, it's actually then being applied to their university education?
Okay, what stats do? I think he's asking about transferability.
Not necessarily even transferability, but
they-
more along the lines of if this child has 12 credit hours, are they going to college and using those towards their degree, or or are they doing a major where maybe those don't necessarily transfer, right? Or going to a school that doesn't accept them and such?
So I can say that I don't believe we have hard data on that. However, we are starting to see increases in four-year bachelor completion rates, and especially since dual credit has been gaining steam. So, I mean, you could say that that's contributing to that because we have a lot of students. We also know that we have significantly more students who are graduating from high school with an associate degree. So even though we might not have actual numbers on exactly whether every single credit hour that they earn as dual credit is applied and used once they get to college, we do know that there is some very positive impacts through this dual credit.
Senator McDaniel, if we're getting hand signals right from Travis Powell back in the back, I think they have data on that.
Okay.
Okay. Representative Bray.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative McCool had asked earlier about the eligibility for the CAP program. You have to be Pell eligible. Are there any kind of eligibility requirements for the KEYS, dual credit, or the Work Ready program?
There are requirements for all of them. They're a little bit different from program to program, but essentially we're looking at students who are state residents for the KEYS and the CAP grant programs. We also have U.S. citizenship requirements. And then, of course, they have to be enrolled in, for KEYS, you're earning that when you're in high school, so you have to be at a state-certified high school, and that's where you're earning the money, and then to actually use it, you're attending a college in Kentucky, or you're in one of the approved out-of-state exceptions where we allow that for KEYS. For the CAP grant programs, it's kind of similar. They all have to be at Kentucky colleges. That's more narrowly focused on just Kentucky colleges. Dual credit's the same way. You're at a high school that is partnering with one of the postsecondary institutions that's agreed to certain terms for the dual credit scholarship, including that discounted rate. And then, of course, you're meeting admissions requirements on the college side as a high school student to actually be enrolled in those dual credit classes. So yes, Work Ready has the same kind of thing. Every single one of them have their own set of eligibility requirements.
Any income eligibility for those?
Well, the CAP and KTG programs, I mean, those are need-based, so it's
Right,
not a
that's- that
hard
Pell, right.
income number. It's kind of based on that big federal picture. KEYS does not have income. It's not need-based. It's just if you've gone to a Kentucky high school and you've accrued that money, then we make it available for you to have when you go to a Kentucky college. And it's really an incentive program to keep students in Kentucky to the best of our ability. With the dual credit, there's not income there. With Work Ready, there's also not an income limit on any of that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative McCool.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With the dual credit, that is, if it's the pipeline and you're trying to get a student through education, that's early on. So we're putting a lot of money into the early portion of their education. Shouldn't we see results of it costing less on the back end of this? And do we have the data to show that?
The answer is yes. I mean, the idea is that if students get college hours, especially those associate's degrees, before they move on in post-secondary, then there's less time to get to graduation, right? And I believe, and Travis maybe back there waving his hand again, is I know that CPE provided some data to our board last year showing decrease in college debt levels for Kentucky institutions, students attending those. And I would think that you could make that leap that is due to students already having significant number of credit hours attained, or even, 1 year is a lot of money. So, before they graduate and hit post-secondary.
Thank you. Representative Tipton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Boy, all this sounds familiar to me. On the Work Ready Scholarship, of course, to Representative Bray's point, it's for anybody who does not have an associate's degree. So you can earn you can get credential certificates up to an associate's degree in the high 5 demand area sectors. And I'm looking at the numbers from 21 on recipients to 25, and it has just exploded. And I'm going to predict it's going to continue to explode because of our changing workforce needs. Saw on the news that Blue Oval is going to start production. We've got a facility at E-Town to train those workers. And we're seeing other companies coming in with changing technologies. This is going to be the workforce need of the future, is to train a workforce capable of meeting these job demands. And to me, this is the area where they're really going to it's going to explode. So I'm just going to make that comment to keep us mindful that this is probably going to be something that we're going to have to address in the future, and how we meet this increase in demand. And y'all have any comments, or you agree or disagree with my projection there, Joe Carroll?
I agree, and I think Becky here a little ways over has the numbers specific to the Work Ready Scholarship, which is the post-secondary side. Of course, the numbers here are the dual credit while they're still in high school. And I think the point is, that's the point of the Work Ready Scholarship, is to meet those on-time demands of the workforce for those short-term credentials that are needed to get skill people up to meet the demands of these new employers. So I think if that's what happens, then that's great, because that's the point of the program.
So with that, I'll go ahead and advance it to the Work Ready slide, because this is the one that's for the regular college students and it's linked to the top sectors. The Work Ready dual credit is not linked to these sectors. It is for career and technical education, which is open to a lot of different areas of interest for high school students. However, this Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship is a top 5 highest demand workforce sectors, and we do have a change. We've had, with Kentucky Workforce Innovation Board sets the top sectors, and so we've worked over the last couple of years reevaluating where those needs are, and we've rolled out some changes. So for this year, for the first time since the program began, we're implementing changes to the Work Ready sectors. And where that has changed in this list I have bulleted here, healthcare, construction, and manufacturing have always been on the list. Logistics has always been on the list, but it's been partnered with transportation. The transportation fell off. this last time. We now have a professional, scientific, and technical services category, which we are still working through. What fell off that was in this category was business and IT. So the technical services still fall within the IT. So we still have quite a bit that is remaining the same. We're just adding some extras in. And of course, we have education that's been added as one of the new demand sectors. For this program, we do have that the award is equal to the tuition and fees. That's at the KCTCS rate. And then we subtract out if they're eligible for Pell Grants, CAP Grants, KTG, or KEYS. It reduces their work-ready amount. So work-ready in and of itself will go to students who are those middle and higher income students who do not qualify for those need-based aid programs. And that's who our work-ready pools are. But as you can see, we've had a steady growth over the last few years in work-ready. We were also very glad we had enough funding in the appropriation that we were able to award summer term work-ready this past summer. That's the first time we've ever been able to do that. And so that was successful. We added a few hundred people in for this summer to do that. And of course, eligibility with work-ready ends when they hit 60 credit hours or earn that first associate degree program.
Can I interject something here? One thing I do want to point out is, of course, Becky has mentioned the 5 sectors. And the one on there that jumps out at people is education being listed as a sector. And I want to clarify that being in a top 5 sector for the state, as determined by KWIB, is not mean a program is automatically eligible for work ready. The top 5 demand sectors are used by KWIB for many purposes, WIOA funding and many other things. Work Ready has some very specific eligibility requirements. The point of Work Ready is a short-term credential or associate's degree that makes a person ready to enter the workforce. So this does not mean that education means a bachelor's degree, a teacher's degree would now be part of the Work Ready program. And I think that's, it's confusing, and I understand why it's confusing, but we do think there may be some early education credentials that would qualify for Work Ready, but bachelor's degrees are not part of the Work Ready program.
If we could go over these last few programs in a timely manner, we do have a limit at 12 o'clock, so got another group.
All right. We're going to wrap it up here. We're going to show you the rest of the lottery programs. The National Guard Tuition Award is also a program, one of the 7 that have been receiving lottery funding. And this just gives you an idea of the amounts that we spent this past year. The appropriation on that program has been $7.398 million for the last several years, and that's been enough to fund that. So KIA will be requesting that base amount again. We have a teacher scholarship program that is a conversion program. Those students, it goes to persons who are pursuing initial teacher certification. And there's also provisions where we can award those funds to teachers who are coming back to school to pursue credentials, primarily to teach dual credit for high school. But this is a program that we have been seeing an increase in interest in. And you can see we have an increase in the funding. It currently has a $2.3 million appropriation, and for this year we are expecting to use all of that because of the increase in applicants for that program. We have some other teacher education related programs that I want to just bring to your attention. One is our Early Childhood Development Scholarship. This is a very old program. It is geared for workforce development, and it is for teachers who are pursuing credentials, wanting to work with preschool age children. And to receive these monies, they have to work an average of 20 hours per week in a preschool or daycare type setting. So we're paying them, they're working while they're going to school to get this. And right now it is paying their full tuition and fees up to UK's rate, which is the highest of all of our public universities. We have 2 new programs that came out of the 24 legislative session. These are not lottery funded. The early childhood program was not lottery funded. But one is a teacher recruitment loan program, and it is similar to the teacher scholarship in that the recipients have to provide teaching service to receive forgiveness for their obligation. Otherwise, they have to repay those monies to us. For this program, they can have up to $5,000 per term, and that's fall, spring, and summer, so possibly $15,000 a year. They also have to work for each semester. They receive these funds. They have to work an entire year as a teacher at a public school specifically. Whereas teacher scholarship, it's a semester for a semester. It's a little more flexible. But this is what we did for the first year, spending $3.3 million. We did have 1,200 applicants, which is really great for a first year implementation of a program as it rolled out. But as I can say, because it's similar to teacher scholarship, that's increasing the need on that program as well. The other program is a student teacher stipend. And during the student teaching semester, we are paying a cash stipend to those Kentucky residents who are student teaching. It was $4,700 last year because that's the way the numbers worked out to keep us within the appropriation levels. For this year, we're able to fully fund the $5,000, which is what's statutory as the maximum for that program. These are the other KIA student aid programs that will be included in our budget request, and that rounds out all of the student aid programs. And I'll just put that the information up here, the names of those, so that you could have that information and be aware we have all these extra programs as well as the lottery programs.
Sounds good. We may have a few more questions. Representative Truitt?
All right, this is, I guess, talking about the dual credit. For any parents like myself who have high school students, just to kind of clarify a little bit. So how many classes do these students qualify are allowed to take at no cost?
So if they're grades 9 and 10, they could have 2 each year for career and technical education. In grades 11 and 12, they could have 2 career and technical education each year plus 2 general education. So possibly 4 the junior year and 4 the senior year. So if you look 9 through 12, that's a possible of 12 free classes paid by the state. However, the discounted rate goes for all the dual credit students take, and we have a lot of students who will just take extra classes and they'll pay it out of pocket, or their district helps give them extra classes.
So the district could allow them to take as many classes as possible, correct? Would that be a district decision, or is that something up to you guys?
It's a district level, school level decision.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator West?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question regards the teacher certification and teacher component is being added to the workforce, that the top 5. You mentioned it briefly and went over it, and I'm still not clear in my mind as to the mechanics of it. As it pertains to, you got to have a credential, you got to have associate degree, whatever, in that space, you only have a bachelor degree as your credential. So mechanically, how is that currently working? And because it's a bachelor degree and not associates or credential, is that a barrier? Does it seem to be a barrier to the teachers participating?
Yes. So
is that being worked out, I guess?
Well, okay. So the top 5 is not exclusive to Work Ready. The top 5 is a statewide list that has many applications, but it's referenced in the Work Ready statute. The Work Ready program is specifically limited to short-term credentials, certificates, and the Associates of Science degree that make somebody work ready. They're ready to enter the workforce. So because if you just said, I'm going to be an elementary education teacher, which requires a 4-year degree, that's not a work-ready eligible program. So even though education has been added to the top 5 list, even if somebody wanted to, statutorily, that program could not be added to work-ready program. And let me clarify a little further. Just because even getting an associate's degree that would then transfer, right? It's still not, you're not ready to be teacher certified and enter the workforce with that associate's degree. So it would not fall under work ready eligibility.
If I could have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman. I noticed it had an hour component in there too, like 60 hours or whatever.
Yes.
So if we as the legislature found that that was something to combat teacher shortage and all that, and we said if you have 60 hours would in statute, I'm assuming, how would that work? Would that work? Would that be good enough?
There are all kinds of changes you could make to the statute to accommodate all kinds of programs, including the education program. I think the question is what is the point and the original point of work ready, and what do you want to use it for going forward? And to not forget about the other scholarships, Becky just went over 3, that really students who have need shouldn't have really any cost to pursue a teacher certification now in post-secondary. Now, middle income, upper income, you still have teacher scholarship, you have the new Turple scholarship, and you have the teacher stipend. You may not qualify for that CAP grant and that Pell Grant. But I think it's a misnomer that there's not financial aid available for students pursuing teacher education.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. No more questions, so thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you all.
And at this time also, could the Council on Post-Secondary Education make their way to the table? And when you get settled, introduce yourself for the record.
Find our presentation. Oh, sorry. There we are. Right. I'll drive for you. Hi. I'm Travis Powell, Executive Vice President and General Counsel for the Council on Post-Secondary Education.
I'm Leslie Brown. I am Assistant Vice President for Operations for the Council on Post-Secondary Education.
Good morning, Amanda Ellis, Senior Vice President of Student Access and Success at CPE.
Go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. We'll start with just a little overview about the Council on Post-Secondary Education. I think most of you all are familiar with us by now. Obviously, we're the state coordinating board for higher education. We do things like approve all academic programs, collect and submit a consolidated budget request for higher education in Kentucky. We approve tuition rates at our institutions for all different types of tuition that institutions have for all programs. So you guys kind of have an idea of what we do, but let me give you a couple of examples. And I want to take this opportunity to thank you all in the General Assembly for really positioning CPE to be what I think is the strongest coordinating board in the nation. So I just returned from a meeting with, it's called the SHIO organization. It's an organization that's kind of the national group of coordinating governing boards all across the nation. They just had their annual meeting. I got back from Minneapolis last week, and I can tell you that most of the initiatives that other states are talking about, we're already on top of, whether it be dual credit, whether it be state longitudinal data systems, whether it be this workforce focus that we're talking about. Kentucky's already there. I like to think all us fine folks at CPE do a good job, but really what makes it work is the structure that we have in statute to make all these things happen. I'll give you one other specific example. I had a very in-depth conversation about developmental education. So many states are trying to get rid of developmental education and move on to what's called the co-requisite model, which developmental education, of course, traditionally is a course that's provided for no credit that brings students up to speed if they're deficient in any core areas before they can actually take a credit-bearing course. Co-requisite model actually puts them in the credit-bearing course and then provides them additional support so they can be successful in those programs. So other states are having conversations. How do we get faculty to do this? How do we get institutions to comply? And we've been doing this since 2017. We have a CP has a administrative regulation that sets forth minimum admission standards. And in that regulation, we essentially eliminated the developmental education program and mandated the co-requisite model at all our four-year institutions, and only one developmental education course at KCTCS institutions. And by doing that, we've reduced cost to the institute to the students. We've increased retention by like 30%, but that's something we've been doing for almost 10 years now, and other states are just starting on that. So anyway, I want to just take this opportunity to thank you all for positioning us to be a leader nationally in what we're doing for higher education. So the format of this, we're going to go through, Leslie's going to take us through our agency budget and kind of what how our current agency budget is structured. And then Amanda's going to go through a couple additional initiatives that we're going to be asking for. And then I'm going to end with another one as well. So I'll pass it over to you, Leslie.
Okay. So to build the story of where we want to go, we must first look at where we currently are. And a lot of times when we make these presentations, we make them in a silo and you only see pieces of how the money is spent. So we want to take this opportunity to bring it all together so you can see the big picture of where our finances land and what they're used for. The first chart that we have is just a chart that shows you the expenditure categories. These align with the appropriation that we received in the executive branch budget bill, the guiding legislation related to each of these categories, and the amount of money spent in the categories and the percentage total. For the sake of time, I want to go ahead to the pie chart because I think visually this is the best way to tell the story. So 25% of the $33.5 million that we are stewards of, and that's $33.5 million of state, federal, trust funds, and private grant funds, restricted funds. Only 25% of that goes towards general operating. And these are our core functions. These are the functions that we are statutorily mandated to achieve. And that's roughly $8.2 million. The next thing moving down the chart, we have our General Fund Technology Trust Fund. Through statute, we are required to provide certain technology services for post-secondary institution and the Kentucky Virtual Library, and that makes up about 11% of that fund. What you do not see in this chart is to make up the difference of money spent, especially with internet connectivity at our post-secondary institutions, the institutions do contribute to this fund as well. And then one of the newer pieces that we have of our budget is the Healthcare Workforce Investment Fund. And this was through the passage of House Bill 200, I believe, in the 2023 General Assembly. And 9% of our overall appropriation is used to fund this. And this is the fund that you may have heard a lot about that builds that pipeline between healthcare workforce needs and post-secondary education. It has been very successful. We use it for a wide range of different type of careers, including like nursing. I know our EMTs, I hear a lot from them where they receive funds for their education in the counties. And then moving on, we have our restricted funds. And there's about 12% in restricted funds, mainly made up of private grants. And these are grants that we receive to enhance our core functions. These grants range anywhere, we have about 24 grants. They range anywhere from $5,000 that'll pay for our staff to go to certain convenings to $1.5 million to roll out certain initiatives that affect our post-secondary institutions. And then moving along, you'll see we have 2% of our appropriation for restricted fund licensure. And these are to license our non-public post-secondary institutions. And there are no general fund monies used in that program. It is all based on licensure fees. And then 4% of federal funds. And these are probably the most uncertain of all the funds we receive. This is made up of a Gear Up grant that we received from the U.S. Department of Education, which will end September of this year. We have not heard if that grant will be renewed. So going forward into the next biennial budget request, we may not have that grant. Other funds that are included in this, we did receive some state physical recovery funds to help Simmons College on certain initiatives and to help Healthcare Collaborative and create healthcare opportunities for our workforce. And the next set of funds that I think a lot of people do not realize that we have are these fiduciary funds. And these are funds that are given to us through the budget bill to pass to institutions for various research projects, and that makes up about 37% of our budget. Tobacco settlement, cancer research. This is split 50-50 between the University of Louisville and the University of Kentucky for cancer research. We have a cancer research matching fund, and this is a tax on cigarettes. We have noticed this fund trending down in recent years as people switch, we believe, from cigarettes to more vapes. And then 9% for the ovarian and spinal cord and head injury funds. And this does fund ovarian screenings. This is where research comes to reality. This actually funds ovarian screenings for various communities in the state. And then we have money for the spinal cord and head injury fund, which brings us full circle to general fund. A few of the initiatives, a few of our more seen initiatives come out of non-recurring funds, such as healthcare workforce, the Aero Act funds. And so you'll see as Amanda will present that we need to expand some of these funds to solidify them more in our recurring operating base. So I will pass this on to Amanda. So we were asked in 2024 to create, we call it the Senate Bill 91 report. And we do have a report that we created that was presented to the legislature that details every program that we operate, corresponds each of those programs to the guiding legislation, and then outlines each dollar that was spent on the program for the last 2 fiscal years. And it was actually fiscal year 23 and 24. And I think you will see, this is a testament to the power of statewide higher education and the coordinating board, because that report, it was voluminous. I mean, even those of us who deal with this every day, when we sat down to actually write this report, even we were a little bit amazed of all that we had accomplished with the monies that we have received. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you said it well. Again, they're linked if you'd like to take a look at the report, but it's just a nice way to show how we tie the dollars to the actual responsibilities that you all have given us, and helping us to be as effective as we have been, as I mentioned when we began.
Okay, so one of the requests we have, in addition to what we do, is $250,000 per year for our website called Futurity. It rhymes with maturity. If you need to help remember that, people ask. And so what Futurity was initially a collaboration between KDE, CPE, and KY Stats to meet a need that the state had. And what that need is that we had a huge amount of resources in this state. Financial aid, as you heard from Kia, we have lots of supports for working adults. We have supports for first generation, underprepared students, but none of those sites were in the same place. So if you didn't know how to find it or what it was called or what the acronym was, it is not an accessible resource. And so what we did together, initially with some ESSER money that KDE had, is that we created this database in this platform, with a tool that provides more than 700 Kentucky-specific career profiles, the cost of Kentucky jobs and wages, outcomes data for all post-secondary institutions, public, private, 2-year, 4-year, and some proprietary schools that we could find information on, to support both high school, middle and high school students as they started to think about careers, where they could get jobs in Kentucky, scholarship opportunities. So we didn't do anything different with Kia's information. We just linked it together so then they could see all the possibilities that you have funded so many of these things. Same thing with our military. And so what we have found is that we have hit 96% of the counties have had usage. And we just launched this in February. On August 12th, we could tell school was back in session. We had 500 hits in a few hours. So we know that we are getting to high schools. We know we're getting to middle schools. That includes alternative schools, because there are pathways and possibilities for all students. We have talked to the career centers, have them linked, Family Scholar House, juvenile justice system, our adult education participants. But what we're missing is really reaching those adults who have not completed or pursued any type of post-secondary training or any type of credential or degree, it's harder to reach them. They have life going on, they have families to feed, and we want to make sure that we are continuously developing this site to meet the needs of Kentuckians. It is specifically for Kentuckians. So when you look on the wages, it's not a national wage average. It is KY Stats data from Kentucky. And so we want to expand this. We want to continue the development of it. We are currently working, I say Kia a lot, but we really do work together a lot, of getting their database of scholarships and uploading that into Future Finder. So that's going to take a while. It's a huge task. If you have not seen their book, it's almost 400 pages of scholarship opportunities in Kentucky. But we want to upload that and align that with jobs. We also are looking to do a cost of living calculator for Kentucky. There are lots of free cost of living calculators, but they are national averages. So when students or adults, a lot of our formerly incarcerated adults are recovering adults from addiction, would say, I need to know how much it's going to cost me in this region. Like, don't give me a national average. Tell me how much it's going to cost to live here. We'd love to do a cost of living calculator that's very Kentucky specific and specific to the region. An employer benefit database. We've been meeting with employers to say, how can we tie this to your needs and not ask you to upload anything more into another Indeed or a Monster.com or a Handshake, or they're tired. They're tired of uploading the same jobs. And so we're talking to employers about how we can connect folks who tap into futurity to seek out their education and connect with careers that are already available in Kentucky. That takes a little bit of time and some development. And also, we have incredible apprenticeship opportunities for adults and students in this state that we want to connect as well with the viable positions in Kentucky. We have so much to offer that we've just found it imperative to connect the dots. And so that's why we talked to 1,200 people before we even launched. We are still talking to people. We still convene with higher ed. We're convening with adult learners. We're convening with workforce. We're convening with anybody in K-12 that will talk to us, and they do, anybody to get the word out. Our biggest users are Louisville and Lexington because that's our greatest populations. But we really need to get to the rural areas of Kentucky. We need to show our folks, our citizens, where their jobs, what's the demand in their region, and help them to find a future. So Travis, if you'll go to the next slide. So just to give you some ideas, I know it says Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That was just a model of what other states have used with the cost of living, but we would want it to look very similar to this with the calculator, not to be overly difficult and make people feel like they're not worthy of figuring it out, but to really get an idea of what it costs to live. A lot of people look at an amount that they would make wage-wise and try to live in certain regions and say, oh my gosh, that's tons of money, until you start to deduct your utilities and your gas and your rent, and then it gets very real. And I know you all have talked about the importance of financial literacy. This is putting it into action, and it's connecting it to future careers. So it's an opportunity for us. The slide you see, or the screenshot you see on the left, is actually a screenshot from Futurity's Future Finder. It does already have military-aligned careers. We just added the MOSs to align to career and technical professions and credentials. It's also, we're also in the process of relating it to CTE programs. They're in the high schools. We want to show that this isn't a stopgap, but it's a continuation of career growth and climbing the ladder and being able to provide for your families and have quality of life. You will notice that there is, on this one specifically, says data not available because there's not enough information in there at that point for that specific career. But in all of this, it will tell you the type of education you need, the description, the training, the projected employment in Kentucky for 2032, and then all the institutions that have related majors. And then our goal is to have that related scholarship piece. So it's in one place. Even our folks who work with adults said we spend hours Googling to help adults find their way. Why didn't we have this before? And so this is by far above and beyond what other states do. There are lots of similar tools like this, but never to this level. We want to continuously develop, talk to our stakeholders, and provide a service for free that makes people feel worthy and see a future in Kentucky. So that's our ask for the $250,000. It's really for continued development. It is continued to do outreach to find folks and to really be intentional with how we build our workforce and build an educated workforce at that. So that's futurity. And then Travis, I'll let you go to the next one. And then the next one that really goes along with a lot of what Kia said, and I think Senator McDaniel, you asked some really good questions, and I forgot who else